Well, hello and welcome to Global Methodist Voices again for another episode. I am so glad to be back with you. My name is Justin Arnold. I'm a pastor here in the Global Methodist Church in North Georgia. I serve at Redwine Methodist over in the Gainesville, Flowery Branch, Oakwood area. For any of you looking for a church in that way, we'd love to have you visit. And if Redwine is not a place for you, I've got a dozen that I would love to send you. And I know that they would be excited that you showed up. So you can reach out and we'd be happy to help you find a GMC church that's close to you. Today, we have a awesome guest. This is one of my top 50 favorite lawyers. And he could be my favorite. I don't know. Top 50 includes number one. So don't give me a hard time about that. But we have, he's not just a lawyer. He also serves mightily in our conference and is leading in a new initiative. I know he's my district lay leader. And so I have with me, Mr. Dan Parr. Welcome to the Global Methodist Voices podcast.
Thank you, Justin. Hey, I'm glad to be on the top 50 of any list. So I don't think that is an affront at all.
Yeah, top 50 as long as it's not the most wanted list.
Right.
Yeah. So get us started. Kind of who are you and what do you, I know you're a lawyer, you serve at Weaver Law, that's your job. But what are you in the conference and how are you doing the different things that you do?
Okay. So basically I'm a layperson. I'm married to an ordained elder, Robin. I'm a member at Dahlonega Methodist Church. And so as you mentioned, I'm the District 20 lay leader. I am a certified lay minister. Got certified through the South Georgia program that we're currently using in North Georgia, which is changing now, thankfully. And as a certified lay minister, I do mainly, I help out with, congregational care, and I do teaching. Do a little pulpit supply when somebody really needs the bottom of the barrel to step in, when they're really desperate. But also on the conference level, I'm the conference parliamentarian. I serve on the connectional council and just whatever in the lay empowerment as an associate for communications. Work for Jane doing that, and so just basically anything that somebody needs doing, I'm willing to try to help.
Oh man. And we've had some amazing folks, clergy and lay on here. Your wife was a recent guest on the show based on her time in the Czech Republic. And so if people haven't watched that, they should, when they're done with this one, go see what Robin was up to earlier this year. But you mentioned, and our focus today is going to be on the CLM or the Certified Lay Ministers Ministry. Can you give us what is certified lay ministry?
That's a great question, because what I've found is that there's a little confusion over, in the GMC, what does certified lay ministry mean? Because people are used to thinking of certified lay speakers, and that was a very narrow, limited thing. But the GMC has opened it up broader, and certified lay ministry covers not only lay speakers, but also if anybody that serves within the local church or outside their local church. They can be pulpit supply, they can be congregational care, they can be teaching, they can be lead a prayer ministry. Believe it or not, a lay minister, a certified lay minister under the Book of Doctrines and Discipline could be assigned, not appointed, but assigned by our conference superintendent to pastor a church for up to a year if there's a vacancy. And so it's a very important role, especially in a place like North Georgia, where we've got more churches than we have ordained clergy. And so it's a great need. Our lay ministers are overseen by Ken McKinnon, who is our CLM director in North Georgia. And so it's under lay empowerment. Jane Finley is the director of a lay empowerment, and Ken is our CLM director. And so that's what basically a certified lay minister is, just a professing lay person who's been called into ministry, but not the ordained vocational ministry. And that they are being equipped, trained, and then certified to serve. And that's it. Now, a lot of lay ministers end up receiving the call and going further to become ordained, but you don't have to feel that call in order to be a CLM.
Yeah. And so we had a previous guest named Jay Allred, who
Yes.
I believe is done certified lay ministry. And I think through that has received a call to some level of pulpit supply and ministerial supply. And so he's assigned to a church right now for a season, I believe. And
Right.
I
And
think
Jay is awesome.
the church found him through this podcast, which is wild. But he's having an opportunity to do more than just show up and preach one Sunday while the pastor's out of town, but he's actually getting to help walk their church through this season of ministry alongside of them. And Jay brings tons of experience and wisdom and knowledge, and just an awesome dude. But
He is a neat.
yeah, he's a great guy. Okay, so who do you think would be a primary like a prime candidate for CLM, or like what do you think kind of fits is there a certain person, certain personality, certain role that would fit a CLM well?
Well, actually, anybody that feels a call to serve in their local church. Now, as Justin, you don't have to be a CLM to serve as on the SPRC, or to serve in the trustees, or to serve in the any facet of your local church. But if what I've learned is that at least in the last 5 or 6 years, in my local church at least, we've had a lot of professions of faith and baptisms and confirmations, but on top of that, we've had a lot of people coming to us from other faith traditions, Catholic, Presbyterian, Baptist, and they bring their beliefs and their traditions with them when they come. And we're different. We're distinct, theologically distinct, and we've been set apart because of that distinction. And so a lot of people, even that grew up as Methodists, like me, you still get things ingrained in your mind that you've either forgotten the details, or forgotten the uniqueness, or didn't know it ever. It was just never sunk in. And so anybody that really wants to go deep in understanding what does it mean to be a Methodist? What does it mean to be a global Methodist? What does it mean if you just have that desire, that burning to know more, to learn more, to be deeper in your faith and your walk with God, and to be equipped? Because that is the key thing that I found, is that sometimes people are reluctant to step up and lead because they feel they're not worthy somehow. They feel they're not equipped somehow. And so the certified lay ministry program does two things, I think, excellent. One is it gives you that theological grounding, that then all the boats are risen to the same level, and everybody has that theological grounding. And it does equip you, because no matter what you serve in as a layperson, if you're leading a prayer ministry, if you're leading worship, if you're in the care ministry, or if you're in pulpit supply, you're leading a small group study, there are questions that come up, and if you don't have that firm grounding, you can go off on a rabbit hole, and it can be the wrong rabbit hole. But so if you're living out your faith and you've got that good grounding, you're going to be equipped to handle it, number one. And once you're equipped to handle it, and then you believe you're equipped to handle it, and then you step up to lead. Okay. So I would say, Justin, anybody that just wants that deeper dive, whether you're going to be serve outside your local church or not, that would be one type of person that should do this. Second, if you feel the call to lead within the local church or outside the local church, whether you feel the call to preach or not, this is for you. Okay. And the benefit of it is, think about it a minute, like you as a local pastor, if you have a need of leadership in your church, and you've got a CLM that's been through this program, that puts you a little bit more at ease in understanding what that person may bring to the table and what they understand when they come to the table, right? But it also helps our leadership in our conference superintendent and our presiding elders and our connection elders in helping to search for people that they need to serve. So it's just I would say, anybody that wants to know more about uh, what it means to be a global Methodist should think about this.
I agree. And one of the things that I've noticed since getting into vocational ministry and maybe before, when I was in seminary, was that much of the theology that is popular mainstream theology is not distinctly Wesleyan. It's not Methodist. And that doesn't mean it's bad. Don't hear me say that. But if we are to be Methodist and if we are to be Wesleyan, then we would lean more into free will than predestination. We would lean more into, um, the unlimited grace and that, we can't, but it's not predestined who will be saved and who won't be saved. And over the last 50 to 100 years, if you look into the mainstream speakers that are well known, think Billy Graham and Jimmy Swaggart and um, all these other people, they're excellent speakers, they're excellent communicators, and on the gospel of Jesus being Lord and Jesus being the only way to salvation, we would agree. But on a lot of the tertiary, secondary, and tertiary issues, we would disagree. And if you haven't spent the time either as just a person or a person sitting in a church, you may have been discipled into or trained or taught in a manner of theology that is explicitly not Wesleyan. And like, I love, I grew up going to Passion Conference, right? I love Passion Conference, but one of their primary speakers is John Piper. And John Piper is a staunch Calvinist. And so while he's probably one of the top 10 living communicators in the world on Christian faith, he doesn't agree with Wesleyan understanding of salvation, specifically who is to be saved. And so, yeah, I think that it may be a way for many of our church members, even if they did not step into a way of leading, to better understand the distinctives that set apart being a Wesleyan, being a Methodist. And so, yeah, I could see the training really helping there. Not to mention, we have so many, as a pastor, I see so many, there's so many lay people who have been leaders in every aspect of their life. They're business owners. They've been senior vice presidents. They've been teachers who have led children. They're lawyers. They're doctors who are leading people in the care of their supervisors over their businesses, and they feel confident and competent in leading in those areas. You say, "Hey, can you serve in the church?" I can't do that. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? You lead every single day when you wake up. You make leadership and intentional decisions. What do you mean you're not equipped to serve in your local church? And so, yeah, I love this idea that it equips people and it empowers people to know that they can lead in their local church and in their conference. So, I agree with what you've said so far in the CLM, uh, in the process and kind of what an outcome would be. I think that's really, really excellent. Not to talk too much, but yeah, I agree that we need that and we need it in our churches. Which gets me to my next question. You had mentioned that we had done this in conjunction with South Georgia. Love our neighbors in South Georgia. Love the work that they did on our behalf when when all this was forming, and love the way that they paved a way for us to live into the faith that we understand. But you've also said that we don't have to do it through South Georgia anymore. So, what happened? How did we both remain in relationship with South Georgia, but get to do the North Georgia thing in the CLM world now?
Yeah, Justin, you're absolutely right. We are so thankful for our South Georgia brothers and sisters because they came along beside us when we were in a pause and we needed their help, and they put out that life raft and they helped us bridge the gap. You remember we were a sub district of their annual conference in the GMC at first. And so because of that, they already had a CLM training program up and running. And so when we became our own annual conference, well, even before that, we were sending all our CLMs down to South Georgia for training. And the problem with that was that, and by the way, we'll always have a great relationship with South Georgia. They are just good people. They are literally our brothers and sisters. They truly are. And I've made some great friendships with those people down there, and we'll always be with ministry with them. This is not a division based on some kind of hurt or, problem. It's just that we recognize we have excellent people in North Georgia that are equipped to train us. And one of the problems we did see, though, was that part of the way there were two ways that two paths that South Georgia allowed you to get a CLM. But basically, you would have to go down to South Georgia in person a couple times at least to do it. And I did. And that's the haul when you go all day down to somewhere down away in South Georgia and stay there. And sometimes you stay overnight. And so that's so hard. And I think it was a barrier to some people. And we've heard from people that said, I'd like to be a CLM, but that's just a big ask for me because I take care of my mother or whatever, or my business or whatever. And so we felt that we could do this training if we just got ourselves organized. We can do it. We've got some excellent clergy that are very well equipped to train us, and we don't need to do that. And it'll promote more CLMs locally. So that's the pathway.
Awesome. I like it. So, so what would, if someone was interested in becoming a CLM, how would they start?
All right. So we are, right now we have a 9-person team that, as we are recording this on, August the 20th, we've got a 9-person team. It's called the CLM Certification Supervisory Team, the CCST, 9 people. And I'll tell you in a minute who's on that team, but we are creating our program. The program is going to launch March of 2027. The registration for students will begin January of 2027. So between now and the 1st of January, we're recruiting all our instructors. The instructors are creating the curriculum. We're just getting our formation finalized. Okay. So that we'll be ready to go. So if you are a person interested in lay ministry, I would say just watch the webpage. There is a page on our conference webpage that's dedicated to CLM. So I would go there first and I would read all about it there. But just be aware that January 1st is when you can go and make an application to become a student, to become, part of the CLM program. Okay. So let me go back and tell you who's on this team. Our 9-person team, we've got the conference lay ministry director, who is Jane Finley. I'm sorry, the chair of the conference lay empowerment team, Jane Finley. The conference lay ministry director, which is Ken McKinnon. I'm going to serve as the dean. We're going to have a registrar that's in charge of bookkeeping, record keeping, and all that kind of stuff. We have 2 members from our board of ordained ministry, 1 lay and 1 clergy. Francisco Artley is our clergy liaison on our team with the BOM, and then Mo Nethery, who is our layperson. Okay. We also have on that team our conference lay leader, Tina Kirkland. We're going to have an audio visual tech person that's going to do this because I'll explain the mode we're going to deliver the course. And then Andy, our conference superintendent, he serves on it also. So those are the 9 people that are serving on it, that's building this program. And so those are the folks that are doing it. So let me just talk, if I can. I know you didn't really ask this yet, but let me go ahead and get into it. What's the process? If you want to be a CLM, what's the process? So let's say it's January and you want to be a CLM. How do you do it? Okay, well, first you go to your local pastor and you say, I'm interested in being a CLM. And the local pastor, the first step is a letter of recommendation from your local pastor. Your local pastor says, I see the calling in you and I want to affirm that calling. That's an important step. We need that as lay people, and we want that to come first from the local pastor. So the local pastor does that. Then the local pastor then refers you to your SPRC, your staff pastor relations, who would then by majority affirm that calling, majority vote. And then you go in front of your charge conference, who again would affirm that calling by majority vote. So you will have had 3 recommendations from the local church level. Once you get that, there's a background check that's done at the conference level. And we do that early on in the process to make sure that we don't want somebody to go through the whole program and then find there's something in there that would be a problem, right? So get the background check. And then you do your coursework. Okay. Now the coursework can start before these other things have been completed, like before the background check, but you just have to realize if you start the coursework and the background check hadn't been done, it's a little risk unless I've got no problem, right? So you do the coursework, which is 7 classes, and I'm going to talk about those in detail in a minute. But once you finish the coursework, then I, as the dean, will notify the BOM that you've completed all the requirements. You've got these 3 layers of recommendation from your local church. You've got the background check. You've done the coursework satisfactorily. And then I notify the BOM. And then at that point, you go in front of the Board of Ordained Ministry for interview. Okay. So even though the Certified Lay Ministry program, if you think about all the programs of our church, of our annual conference, they're either under the clergy or under the lay, right? So that's what the lay empowerment team is all about. So even though the CLM Academy, the training, and the CLM supervision of CLMs is under the lay part of the hierarchy, all ministers that are going to be deployed in any way come through the Board of Ordained Ministry. And so at the very end, you go in front of the Board of Ordained Ministry to be interviewed, just like an ordained clergy would be. And then they would because they would have access to things that we wouldn't in our academy about the person. But we don't see the background check. That goes to the conference, and that's very confidential. But they would see that. And so then they would know if there were issues, or if they just felt that there was something in the call of the person that they needed more training, or that something just didn't fit right. That's what the BOM is there for, right? Same thing for clergy, right? So once then the BOM approves you, then you're certified. You get a certification, you're recognized at annual conference, and you're equipped to serve inside the local church, outside the local church, or beyond, if you needed to go to another annual conference. You have to be recertified every 3 years. And that's through taking an advanced course at least once every 3 years. There's a yearly report that we have to do every year. We go before our administrative council every year. We send out a report every year the pastor signs off on. And it asks a bunch of questions. What have you done this year? How do you see what you've done? How would you like to do? Who is mentoring you, and how are you being deployed? And you're asked to be recertified that year. And so every year we send that in. So once you're certified, you're not just out there left twisting in the wind. There's guidance, right? So that's basically the process to be a CLM.
Yeah. And I want to get to the thing you kind of teased earlier, but I do want to say, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, that sounds like a lot, and it sounds like a lot of hoops to jump through, let's temper that for a moment. Because when I started seminary and I had to go get this Master's of Divinity, which is hanging up on my wall, and I had to go through all these hoops and jumps, and it's like, man, can't I just go preach somewhere? Sure, I could have, and that would have been fine. But the reality is that CLMs, just like vocational pastors, are going to be put into Christian leadership situations, and it is a calling, and there are souls on the line. And so the conference is taking the necessary steps um, for the sake of souls, that we're not just sending out whoever wants to just go on a Tuesday because they want to be famous, because they want a platform to speak on whatever they want to speak on, because they've got some agenda, or they want to start a cult. I mean, uh, I know it sounds crazy, but I met a guy recently. He was like, I'm thinking about starting a cult. And I was like, why would you start a cult? And he's like, because you can funnel tax-free money through it. And I'm like, you're ridiculous and probably not wrong. And so just to be really mindful, like, yes, it does sound like there's some hoops. I want you to hear there are steps in the process that will require time and effort and maybe even a couple of dollars. But those are uh, for the sake of our brothers and sisters who we will lead in vocational ministry. And the Bible says, not many of you should become teachers because you will be held accountable for what you teach. And so, as certified lay ministers, if you are the assigned leader to a church, you're their pastor for a year. You're not just like, you are the shepherd of that flock for a year. And so we want people to put time, effort, and care into the preparation for that. So if you heard it and you're like, man, that's too much work, it's so intentional. You want your pastor to be able to pass a background check.
Yeah.
I mean, now granted, most pastors in the Bible, most leaders would never have passed a background. I mean, Paul would have failed the background check 10,000 times over, but we still want people in 2026 to pass a background check.
Well, and let me add two other things. First, and something you said triggered this thought in my mind. It's not falling off a log easy, but it's very doable. You take it one bite at a time. It's very doable. I did it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But I want you to know, hear me say this. Two things that really stick out to me about CLM. It does equip us to lead. It does equip us to serve, but it equipped me just to live out my faith better, because we think things and we act on our beliefs. And if we're more grounded in true theology and truly what it means to be a Christian and a disciple of Jesus, if we understand that better, we're going to live it out better. So first, it benefits me. Okay. But second, I just really want to highlight too, it's something you said made me think about this. When you said, for the benefit, their souls at stake and for their benefit, sometimes it's not just even salvation issues, but let's say that, like, one of the things I do is I try to help with visitation. If somebody just needs a visit and the pastors are getting ready for funerals and they're dealing with people on their deathbed and people going through a breakup of their marriage, and this is not a person in crisis, but they need a Christian brother to come alongside, right? And it's not on the level of a Stephen minister, but it's just visitation, right? How many times I have run across where people are going through things that I called on my training theologically to be able to help them and not say some of the horrible things that could have been hurtful because I just didn't know better.
Right.
That's critical.
No, that's so good. Now, yeah, there's some, I don't even think they teach that well in seminary, but there's some things that you can say bedside that are just, I mean, God needed another angel. No, he didn't. If he needed another angel, he'd have made one.
Right.
He's the creator of the universe. He doesn't need any more angels, and you're not going to be an angel.
Right.
You're going to be who God has you be in eternity. So he's got the angels he needs. No one's getting their wings. Okay. So if you are a person listening to this and you call yourself a Methodist, no one is getting their wings. The angels are jealous of the position that we have.
Right.
So don't worry about it. You're going to be in a much better place than with wings.
Right.
So you had mentioned there's like 7 classes, or what kind of are people learning? I mean,
All right. So there's 7 classes. There are 6 what we call basic classes, and then there's 1 advanced class. The basic classes are understanding the call and means of grace, basic Bible. Then there's the theology and doctrine of the GMC. There's global Methodist history and polity, congregational care and ethics. That's what we were just talking about. Disciple making, mission, and evangelism. Those are the 6 core classes. Okay. And then there's the preaching class. And we're requiring the preaching class. All of those other classes are going to be on Zoom. Okay. And they can be taken either synchronously or asynchronously. Either, in other words, they'll be on Zoom live, and you can jump on live with everybody that's doing those classes all by Zoom. And you can do it as it's being done and participate. Or if you miss a class, you can't be there, or you can just take them all asynchronously. In other words, you can't jump on until 10 o'clock on a Thursday night to do your coursework. Then that's what you do, because we want to make it more available for people to get the training. And so you can do it either synchronously or asynchronously. You take those basic 6 classes, and they're all on Zoom. But then there's the preaching class, and we're requiring that in person. And we're requiring that in person because we want there to be feedback. We want there to be, you deliver a sermon and you get feedback from your class members and from the instructor. And so that's the only one that's in person. Okay. And some people say, why are you requiring a preaching class if you don't have to preach to be a CLM? You could be a CLM and never once fill a pulpit. And that's true. But the reason we're requiring that as part of our certification is because you could be assigned as pulpit supply for up to a year, or you could just choose to do that as a lay speaker type. So because of that, we want that to be part of the basic course curriculum, right? And then we've got advanced courses that when I talked about recertification, we're going to be offering advanced courses in mission service, ministry with children and youth, worship planning and worship leadership, and leadership and administration. And there's going to be probably other ones coming on board later, but that's what's in the plan now.
That's good. In seminary, you're required to take your preaching class in person too. So I took a mostly asynchronous hybrid seminary, and you have to go to preaching because you're going to preach in front of people.
Right.
And so, no, I'm for that. I'm excited for that. And yeah, that should be all those classes are just generally good. Why are we Global Methodist? Right? That's your GMC doctrine. How did we get to become Global Methodist? Now, the GMC history is like, that's 5 years old. Yeah. But our Methodist Wesleyan history dates back to the early 1700s, really before that. There's some really, one of my favorite classes in all of seminary was history. And I'm not a history guy, but I had a history professor, and I think he was old enough to live through most of Methodist history. But he had a book that talked about how, like there was a kids that had reformed the church, and it was the faith of the children that reformed the faith of the Lutherans. And then out of this Protestant movement came the Moravians, and out of that, the Moravians then were the ones that were with John Wesley, and then John Wesley had his heart strangely warmed, and then Methodism birthed out of that. And so, like, it was like this trickle effect. Who would have thought 10,000 kids wandering through the woods in, a war-torn country would ultimately lead to what we're experiencing now today in Global Methodism? Bet none of you knew that. And it probably won't make the class because it's kind of a obscure piece of history, but it was so cool to see, how we got here and why we got here. And it's really been reformers who have always, like John was a reformer who came after the reformers. And it was all about getting back to scriptural holiness. It was all about getting back to what does the Bible actually say? And that's true of the GMC today. And so we have this rich history in our denomination of living into what the saints before us, like Hebrews 12, you know, the cloud of witnesses, have always been about reforming back to what Scripture says. And so that could be a really fun class uh, if you pay attention. If not, it's a bunch of boring old dates and it's going to stink, you know? So,
Well, actually, what's so cool about all those classes is, for me, they overlap so much. When you have an understanding of basic Bible theology and what the Bible, how the Bible teaches and what the Bible is and what the theology is, and then you're studying the doctrine and theology of the GMC, and you see how, wait a minute, we didn't just dream this up,
no.
like you said. And then when you see our history and our polity, how that just dovetails with it too, and it really then comes to home, and it really inspires you to live it out.
Right. Right. All right. Well, we're about stories. So you are a CLM, and do you have any stories of anything cool where you've gotten to go deploy as a CLM? Uh, would you share maybe uh, something that you didn't expect to happen, or a place where
Yeah,
you saw God because you were deployed as the CLM?
absolutely. So here, I guess and you didn't prepare me for that question now, Justin.
Didn't plan on preparing you for that question.
I'll
Yep.
look at, but but I'm gonna say this: how I was transformed by the CLM program is this. Um, I'm the youngest of two children. I was the baby of the family. Never, didn't rebel as a kid. Was a rule follower. I was an obedient child. I was a boring kid. Okay, I don't have a Damascus Road experience that I can. That's not my story. My story is the Timothy story. My story is the story of God's faithfulness in my whole life. I've never not known God, but yet I was very selfish. I was very self-centered. And so when I got married, that was the first step in my sanctification was in going outside myself and thinking of others before me. So even though theologically I had a very good grounding in theology, and even though I knew, even from my late 20s and early 30s, I really started digging into the Bible and theology, and that was really important to me. But still, I had head knowledge. I had head knowledge, and not so much. I wasn't living it out, and I was one of those people that really didn't feel like, well, what can I offer? Right? I was one of those you were talking about, and so I didn't do a whole lot of other than serving on committees and that kind of thing, teaching a little, teaching in small group, Sunday school, whatever. I didn't really serve. I didn't, because I just didn't. I was just too selfish. Okay, I really was. But once I did the CLM training, uh, and so, by the way, I would have never gone to somebody's house and prayed with them. I would have not wanted to visit with somebody. I would have not felt the motivation to do it, because I was just caring about myself, thinking about me and my wife, my children, my business, whatever. Me. Okay. But once I got the further understanding of, and really understanding more about what sanctification is, and about how Jesus really commanded us to serve others. It wasn't just, hey, let's think about serving somebody else. It was a command. And so once you really get that, I then made myself available to go and try to visit. Okay. And so that's, to me, the best thing that has happened to me that I've been able to do, because if you take a person, like the way I look at it is, if you think about a dartboard, the bullseye and all the circles around the dartboard, your pastor is having to focus on that first inner circle where the people are in crisis, or the second inner circle where somebody's very ill or somebody's going through a divorce. And they can't be with everybody. They can't, But there are people that need regular support from somebody that loves them, somebody that cares about them. And sometimes they need, many times they need their pastor, and there's nothing that a layperson can do better. The pastor has to be there. But there are other times that it's really important that we do that. And I never would have thought I would have done that. I was not good at it. But I have really enjoyed it, and I have really felt fulfillment from it. And I have really felt the call to do that. And that I want to do it now. I feel motivated to do it. And so I do think it's transformed me just because of the training because it then gave me the motivation. Hey, I need to do more than what I'm doing. And it's not about checking boxes, or it's not about earning wings or whatever, but you just feel motivated to do it. And then once you start doing it, you realize I'm being used.
Right. Right. I mean, we often quote that Ephesians 2, for it's by grace you've been saved through faith, but not by your works. But then it says that we have the works that we were to do were set before us out of an overflow of our faith. And so what you're talking about is those good works are the overflow of the faith that you have in Christ. It's not so that people know that you are good. It's so that people know that God's good. Unfortunately, you have to tell your own stories. And so it sometimes feels odd, but you get to live into the good works that God has planned for you. And that's really, really a neat thing to see how saying yes and walking through the CLM process has worked on your sanctification and invited you into the good works that God has for you. So thanks for sharing that, Dan. That's awesome. Well, anything else that people need to know as we get ready to wrap up?
I would say two things. Number one, August the 15th, the webpage went live in terms of clergy being able to make an application to be part of our faculty. And on the webpage that we have a job description for our faculty. Our faculty will all be clergy. And I can go into 10 minutes of why that's the case. And if anybody has a concern about that, call me and I'll discuss it with them. But we're going to have all clergy faculty. But the clergy need to make an application. We're not going to be calling people. Now, I've emailed a couple of people and said, hey, please make an application, and I'm intending on doing that to a few more. But I think as of yesterday, we had, I don't know, 8 or 10 that had just in this 4 or 5 day period that had made application. And so if you are a clergy person and you think that you would want to teach and equip CLMs in one of those classes, the course descriptions are basically there on the web page, and the job description for what does it entail. The good news for you clergy is you get to pick when you teach. Is it going to be on a Tuesday night? Is it going to be on a Sunday afternoon? You pick that, and you get to develop the curriculum, and we approve it. Of course, we're not. We're going to make sure the
Sure.
team's going to approve it. But the clergy, so we're not going to be telling. There's a criterion that the Higher Education Commission is requiring be taught all across global Methodism. So it's a all across global Methodism. These are the points you have to teach. So that will be that guidance given to the instructor. But other than that, they determine how many classes do I need to teach that? How we're going to divide it up, And so most of those classes are going to be from 4 to 6 hours. Each of those basic courses about 4 to 6 hours each. The preaching class may be a little longer, right? So, you may end up having 3 or 4 classes of Zoom to complete a class, So as a teacher, if you're interested, you clergy folks, please apply. We need you, and we'd love to have you there because we want this to be an excellent program, and it's going to take you to make it happen. And then second, if you're interested in the program as a CLM, as a person to get the training, please go to the webpage and just read about it. And then there's a button there that if you have questions for me, click a button and it'll send me an email and I'll call you and I'll talk to you. But otherwise, just get ready for January the 1st to be looking for being able to make application then. So that's really it for right now.
That's awesome. Well, head on down to the show notes if you want to click on links that will take you directly to the website. We'll be sure to include those in the show notes. And I pray that you would, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, would you really spend an extra couple minutes discerning if God is leading you into CLM? He might be, he might not be, and that's okay too. But I think God is still calling people, and this may be a place for you to stretch where God is leading you. And so, if you are a layperson looking to see how God is taking you into ministry, this could be a really cool and fun way to do that. So, thanks, Dan, and thank you for your leadership and all the ways that you're leading in the conference. And I'm excited to hear about your sanctification, and I'm sure that you and I will, so we're in the same district. I'm sure I'll get to hear more of that in the coming weeks and months. But thanks for being on the Global Methodist Voices podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you for listening to the Global Methodist Podcast. We're so glad that you're with us this week. If you would, go ahead and like and subscribe so that the algorithm will let you know that you want to know about future episodes. If you are interested in CLM, be sure to head over to ngagmc.org and go find it on the website. You can follow the description in the link below. So we cannot wait to see how God is going to work and move in the CLMs as they head forward. May God richly bless you as you travel from North Georgia into the very ends of the earth. May you go with God. Amen.
Amen.